What if the fastest driver this season was being deliberately held back? What if the difference between a world title and second place wasn't the car, the track, or the tires, but internal politics? Bernie Ecclestone now claims McLaren sabotaged Oscar Piastri to boost Lando Norris. And with just 4 races left, Oscar is 1 point behind and the paddock is erupting. What if the driver who dominated the first half of the Formula One season is being held back by his own team? Not due to lack of skill, not due to mechanical issues, but by intent. That's the explosive claim made this week by Bernie Ecclestone, former F1 boss, master of paddock politics, and a man who never chooses his words lightly. According to Ecclestone, McLaren is not just favoring Lando Norris, they are actively slowing Oscar Piastri down. And as of today, with only 4 races left, the Australian finds himself 1 point behind in the championship he once led. It's the kind of accusation that forces the entire sport to stop and look around. Ecclestone isn't just anyone. He ran the sport for 4 decades. He's seen loyalty twisted into marketing strategies and performance sacrificed for profit. In his view, McLaren's motivation is clear: Norris is British, marketable, a media darling. And in an era where every frame matters for sponsors, that kind of presence sells more than pole positions. McLaren wants a British world champion, he said. And Oscar Piastri is in the way. But numbers don't lie. And they tell a different story. At Zandvoort, Piastri won his 7th Grand Prix of the season. He was clinical, efficient, over 100 points ahead of Verstappen, 34 ahead of Norris. His driving was a masterclass in control. His championship lead? Comfortable. But not just statistically. It felt earned. Solid. Unshakable. No drama, no mistakes. Just raw, measured excellence from a driver who seemed completely in sync with the MCL 39. Then the silence came. No podiums in 4 races. A crash in Baku. Lost pace in Austin. 40 seconds behind his teammate in Mexico. And through it all, the whispers. Why did Norris receive a new floor while Piastri didn't? Why was Oscar asked to yield position at Monza? Why are all the major updates appearing on one car and not the other? At first, these were questions asked quietly. Now, thanks to Ecclestone, they're on front pages. This isn't a typical title battle anymore. This is no longer 2 McLarens chasing the same dream on equal footing. It's become a layered, high-stakes conflict. One between sporting fairness and commercial reality. Between driver merit and team messaging. And the longer the pattern continues, the more difficult it becomes to dismiss it as coincidence. Because in Formula One, when you have 2 equally matched drivers and only one gets the upgrades, you're not just shaping the outcome. You're choosing it. When Oscar Piastri crossed the line in Zandvoort, it wasn't just another victory, it was his 7th of the season. That day, he pulled 34 points clear of his teammate Lando Norris and opened a seemingly insurmountable lead over Max Verstappen over 100 points. At that stage, Oscar wasn't just leading the championship, he was controlling it. With 14 podiums in the first 15 races, his consistency was surgical. No errors. No missteps. His performances were robotic in the best possible way: precise, tireless, calculated. What made it all the more impressive was the margin. These weren't narrow wins brought by luck or strategy gambles. He was consistently quicker than Norris, often by 2 to 3 tenths in qualifying, and more complete across race weekends. His tire management, pace in traffic, and control under pressure made him the most complete driver on the grid during the first 2/3 of the season. His lead felt secure, not inflated by circumstance, but underpinned by merit. And the McLaren team, until then, seemed to treat both drivers with parity. But the momentum changed dramatically. The first crack appeared in Baku. A rare mistake from Piastri in qualifying saw him crash in Q3. Then came a false start on race day, followed by an early race-ending incident. He scored 0 points. At the same time, Norris was beginning to pick up speed, improving incrementally race by race. While Oscar struggled with rhythm, Lando capitalized, and for the first time in the season, the intra-team dynamic began to tilt. Not through dominance. Through attrition. Austin and Mexico exposed a deeper shift. Oscar, once ahead of Norris on raw pace, was now consistently trailing. In the United States, he was 3 tenths slower across all sessions. In Mexico, it was worse, almost 6 tenths off in qualifying, and over 40 seconds back at the checkered flag. The driver who had once looked poised to clinch the championship with 2 races to spare now found himself second in the standings. His commanding lead was gone. His grip on the title was slipping. And then came the upgrades. McLaren brought a heavily revised floor to Mexico but only fitted it to Norris's car. The justification? A single unit was ready. Manufacturing constraints. But in a title battle separated by single digits, that explanation doesn't sit comfortably. The new floor added stability, downforce, and consistency in low-grip conditions precisely where Piastri had been suffering. To many, the message was clear: Lando got the tools. Oscar got the waiting list. The cumulative effect of these decisions, intentional or not, has reshaped the championship fight. The standings now show Norris ahead by 1 point. Verstappen, once dismissed, lurks 36 points behind. But behind those numbers lies a story of control lost not by performance, but by environment. Oscar Piastri didn't become a slower driver overnight. The numbers prove it. The question is whether he was given a fair shot to stay ahead or whether the deck was reshuffled behind the curtain. McLaren's official stance on Oscar Piastri's mid-season drop in performance hinges on circuit characteristics. Tracks like Austin and Mexico are low-grip, high-altitude environments that place an enormous premium on traction and rear stability. The MCL39, already known for being a bit temperamental at the rear axle, becomes particularly difficult to tame under those conditions. According to Andrea Stella, these tracks naturally suit Lando Norris and demand a driving approach that, while intuitive for him, is less natural for Oscar. But that's only part of the story and not the most compelling one. The truth lies deeper in the telemetry. In Mexico, the data revealed a stark contrast between both McLarens. Oscar was braking earlier into the first corner. He wasn't attacking apexes with the same confidence he showed earlier in the season. The throttle traces show hesitation delays in getting back on power through the stadium section. These aren't stylistic choices. They reflect a driver reacting to instability, fighting a rear end he no longer trusts. And in Formula 1, if a driver doesn't trust the car's behavior mid-corner, performance bleeds away 10th by 10th. Then there's tire performance. Long-run data from FP2 in Mexico painted a troubling picture. Norris, using the same compound, managed a 10-lap stint with stable degradation and consistent rear temperatures. Oscar, on the other hand, suffered overheating after lap 5. His rears fell out of the operating window quickly, killing his traction and exaggerating his braking instability. In a car that becomes loose under acceleration, that margin compounds with each lap, turning minor discomfort into major pace loss. And here's where the engineering decisions raise eyebrows. McLaren brought a significantly revised floor to Mexico. The new spec improved airflow consistency, increased downforce, and added crucial rear-end grip. But only one was available. It went to Norris. The explanation was logistical, that only one set of parts had been manufactured. But the timing couldn't have been worse for Piastri, who had been struggling with the exact characteristics the new floor addressed. In the middle of a title battle, that choice changes more than just car balance, it shifts momentum. What's more troubling is that Norris himself admitted post-race that the new floor performed exactly as expected, suggesting the gains, while perhaps modest, were meaningful. He played down the advantage, but the gap in race pace told another story. 42 seconds separated the two McLarens at the finish line. That's not an execution gap. That's a performance gap. And it's hard to dismiss it as pure coincidence when the only major difference between the cars was the floor underneath them. The implications are clear. If this is truly about driving styles, then why develop a solution that corrects Oscar's weaknesses and not give it to him? Why not prioritize the driver who's led the championship most of the season? At best, it suggests a team forced into resource compromises. At worst, it hints at preferential treatment under the guise of engineering. Either way, the one certainty is that Oscar Piastri has been left to adapt without the very tools that would help him do so. The inflection point, both statistically and symbolically, came in Baku. Piastri, up to that moment almost robotic in his execution, made a mistake in Q3. He braked too late into turn 3 and hit the wall. It was uncharacteristic, his first major qualifying error of the season. But it was what followed that truly shocked. On race day, Oscar jumped the start. The anti-stall kicked in. He dropped to the back before the first corner and, just moments later, crashed out again, this time into turn 5. It wasn't just a bad race. It was a total collapse. His first retirement in over a year. His worst weekend in Formula 1. Suddenly, the aura cracked. The driver who had built his season on relentless consistency had gone scoreless. For the first time in 34 races, he didn't bring home points. Meanwhile, Lando Norris started chipping away. Small gains. Steady results. Piastri's lead began to shrink, not through any resurgence of Verstappen, but through the subtle erosion of Oscar's momentum. And then came Austin. In Texas, Oscar was 0.3 off Norris across every session. He wasn't making glaring mistakes, but the pace gap was visible and persistent. In the sprint race, a first corner tangle eliminated both McLaren drivers, a forgettable moment for the team, but one that further stalled Oscar's rhythm. Then in the main event, he quietly came home in 5th, completely adrift from the frontrunners. Norris, on the other hand, looked revitalized, finishing on the podium and closing the gap even further. Mexico cemented the shift. Piastri was outqualified by nearly 6/10 and finished over 40 seconds behind Norris in the race. That gap wasn't reflective of driving alone. It reflected something deeper. Oscar had lost the setup window, lost confidence in the rear of the car, and was running without the upgraded floor given to Lando. The outcome? He lost the lead of the World Championship. A lead he had carried since Saudi Arabia in April. A lead that had felt, just 4 races ago, inevitable. But numbers aside, the bigger shift was psychological. For the first time, Oscar Piastri no longer felt like the team's primary hope. The man who had carried McLaren through the first 15 races suddenly found himself chasing not just on track, but within the garage dynamics. Every media headline questioned his form. Every radio message was dissected. Every move by McLaren analyzed for bias. Fair or not, the perception had changed, and in Formula One, perception often becomes reality.